Hi, I'm Scott, you're watching Tanner Travels, and this is... When most people think of Greece, they probably have two conflicting images. There's ancient Greece, Zeus, wooden horses, philosophers, Spartans, geometry. And then there's modern Greece, souvlaki, zorba, white houses, national debt, and Mamma Mia. But do these two stereotypes have anything in common, other than a shared land? Gabby and I thought we might find out when we did a two-part holiday in the summer of 2023. We'd start with a 5-day stay in Athens, the historic capital, with 5,000 years of history to explore. Then, we'd catch up on some much-needed R&R on one of the many islands that make up the Greek archipelago, Kos. Arriving in Athens in the evening, we checked into our centrally located Airbnb and immediately went to the roof terrace to take in the city by night. Given that Athens has so much history to see, it helps to have a little context, but I promise I'll make this brief. People have been settled in this area at least 9,000 years. The Bronze Age saw the rise of civilizations like the Mycenaeans and the Minoans of Crete, before the emergence of several self-governing city-states like Argos, Sparta, Corinth, and of course, Athens, as well as colonies across the Mediterranean. In the 5th century BC, the Persians twice tried to conquer Greece, even capturing Athens, but the other city-states rallied together and soon drove the Persians out for good. This began the Classical period, a high point of culture, art, scientific and political thought, which would be the founding of Western civilization. But it wasn't peaceful, with several city-states jostling for control until Alexander the Great conquered not just Greece, but much of Europe and the Middle East. In 146 BC, the Romans conquered the region, incorporating much of ancient Greek art and culture into their own. When the Roman Empire split 500 years later, these lands fell under the control of the Byzantines, who ruled them for over 1,000 years. The Ottomans then conquered the Byzantines in 1453 and ruled for another 400 years until the local population rebelled, winning the Greek War of Independence in 1821 and forming much of the modern Greece we know today, with Athens as its capital.
Athens is packed with ancient history, but on our first day we spent our time exploring the more modern tourist attractions, starting with the changing of the guard ceremony outside the Greek Parliament building. Here, in front of the tomb of the unknown soldier, the Evzones, an elite unit of presidential guards, stand watch for an hour at a time, motionless and silent. The traditional pom-pom shoes, or sarochi, contain 60 nails to give a distinctive sound but make them weigh 1.5 kilos each. Evzones must undergo 6 months of intensive training to exercise the restraint their unit is famous for. Their uniforms commemorate the Klephts, a mountain-dwelling people that helped overthrow the Ottomans during the Greek War of Independence. As far as we could make out, the moustaches are optional.
Our first ancient site was the Panathenaic Stadium, built in 330 BC to host the Panathenaic Games. Part athletics event, part religious festival, games like this were common in Greek city-states, the most famous one of course being the Olympic Games, which were held over here in Olympia. The Romans rebuilt the stadium out of marble in the 2nd century, increasing its capacity to 50,000. But it soon fell into disuse and remained largely forgotten until it was excavated by German architect Ernst Ziller in 1869. The Olympic Games were revived in 1896 and held in Athens, with this stadium playing host to the opening and closing ceremonies as well as 4 of the 9 sports. Despite the 33-degree heat, some people braved jogging a lap of the historic 400-metre track. I, meanwhile, decided to do a shorter but faster 50-metre sprint filmed in slow motion, which went well. As I started to slow down, my ankle gave out, sending me tumbling to the track. I laughed it off, but the grazes I picked up to my ankle, shin, knee, hip and elbow left me in agony for several days afterwards and took the rest of the holiday to heal.
We escaped the worst of the heat by taking shelter in the Athens National Garden, opened in 1840. And we weren't the only ones struggling.
I think he's trying to kick himself off, you know. I think he's going to try and do it. All right. Well, he did it.
Got to explore other obnoxiously grandiose buildings with functions way more boring than their architecture would suggest. Home of Greek literature, we call this.
What was that, sorry?
This is the home of Greek literature.
Uh-huh.
The Library of Athens, or the Library of Athens University.
So, we're on our way to Plaka.
Plaka.
Well, we are actually in Plaka, which is the old town, basically, but it's also a thriving restaurant district, so hopefully you're going to get some good eats tonight.
Acropolis Plaka.
Oh, there you go. It's literally written on the sign over there.
After I, yet again, out-ordered Scott at the restaurant, we explored the bustling nightlife of Plaka. We decided to get an early night, ahead of climbing Athens' most famous monument the next day.
Like many ancient Greek cities, Athens has an Acropolis, a hilltop citadel of temples and monuments. People have been fortifying this rocky outcrop for 5,000 years, but it wasn't until the Greeks retook Athens from the Persians in the 5th century BC that the statesman Pericles began a massive building program to restore the city's former glory. The result was the most impressive complex of structures in the ancient Greek world. The Acropolis is dominated by the Parthenon, a temple to the goddess Athena, who famously founded the city. With its perfect proportions and symmetrical design, the Parthenon is seen as the finest example of ancient Greek architecture, embodying the Greek principles of harmony and balance. Another temple, the Erechtheion, was, well, erected nearby. It once housed an ancient wooden statue of Athena, worshipped by a cult, but it's most famous for its porch, which is supported by 6 female-shaped columns, or caryatids. These ones are copies. The originals are displayed in the Acropolis Museum. Well, mostly.
The Greeks are clearly very proud of their history, having spent €130 million on the impressive Acropolis Museum, which opened in 2009. This is where all the best finds are kept, from tiny trinkets all the way up to gigantic sculptures and frescoes. Five of the 6 original caryatids are also displayed here too. The missing 6th one has been held hostage in the British Museum since 1816. We've rounded out this exhausting but fascinating day with pizza on the terrace of our Airbnb.
One of the smartest moves we made before coming to Athens was buying a 6-in-1 archaeological site ticket. And one of those sites was the Temple of the Olympian Zeus. There's not much left today, but this colossal temple used to have over 100 17-metre high columns and took over 600 years, and several aborted attempts, to finally be completed. Much more impressive was the ancient Agora, the centre of ancient Athens, which features temples, shops, a court, a library, and a coinage. Gabby took the burden of my camera bag so I could film the most intact building, the impressive Temple of Hephaestus. The nearby museum focuses on the changing styles of art found in and around the Agora, tracing its development over thousands of years.
Later that evening, we rode the funicular railway to the top of Lycabettus Hill for a spectacular view of the city at sunset, and a pretty decent meal too. The heyday of classical Greece that gave us the Parthenon and the ancient Agora were cut short by successive defeats to the Romans in the 1st and 2nd century BC. That left Athens devastated until Augustus pledged funds to regenerate the city in 17 BC, starting with the building of a new Agora, not far from the ancient one. This market complex has yet to be fully excavated, but included long colonnades around an open-air courtyard, a fountain, and the octagonal Tower of the Winds, a building used to tell the time and predict the weather.
The Emperor Hadrian admired ancient Greece and visited Athens many times. Athens loved him too, building this impressive arch in his honour and granting him citizenship in 132 AD. Of course, the real question is, would Hadrian have gone for chicken or pork gyros? Gabby and I couldn't agree.
In the evening, we visited Monastiraki Square in the centre of the city, Athens' modern-day version of a bustling agora. Nearby is another of Emperor Hadrian's lasting marks on the city, Hadrian's Library. The printing press wouldn't be invented for another 1,300 years, so this library stored its texts on traditional rolls of papyrus.
You should make a photo series of Gabby makes a fool of herself around various monuments.
It would be a very long album.
For our fourth day, we booked a trip inland to visit the ancient city of Delphi. Nestled on the slopes of Mount Parnassus, Delphi was famously the home of the Oracle of Delphi. For over 1,000 years, these high priestesses, dedicated to the god Apollo, would give prophecies, inhaling fumes and channeling Apollo's spirit. The Delphic oracle had considerable influence throughout the Greek world and was consulted before all major undertakings, including wars and founding new colonies. Her prophecies were deliberately ambiguous, and any failure for real life to correspond to the prophecies was seen as a failure to correctly interpret the prophecy, not the fault of the prophecy itself.
It's yet another ancient ruin. It's still a very pretty place. Not a lot of the actual ruin left, but look at the view.
It's also very hot today. Do you want to talk about that? How impressive it is?
Absolutely. Scott's also going to be wearing this like a little donkey.
Well, you kind of volunteered yesterday, and I thought I'd take you up on that offer today. You haven't carried it up the whole hill, though. Only a little bit of it.
That's your job.
Okay, well, yeah, because I'm now going to attempt to try and go up here to see what's at the top.
Delphi, or Pythia as it was known back then, was also famed for sports. Champions would come here to train at altitude for the Pythian Games, which took place in the nearby stadium. Held every 4 years, the Pythian Games were one of 4 major games tournaments at the time and were held 2 years after the Olympic Games.
Should probably have chosen level ground to do this. So
Yeah.
Gabby, how did you find Delphi?
Very, very interesting.
Yep,
Very, very slippery.
it is very slippery.
But also very, very hot. But also very, very interesting. I said that twice. My brain is a scrambled egg right now.
Yes, it's, I don't know what it is, it's very, very hot.
Yes, it is very hot. Did I not say very, very hot?
I don't know, maybe you did. I think we're both running on fumes at the moment. So now it's off to the museum to look around some of the actual artefacts they found here. What?
Shade.
Oh, okay, in my shade. Right, okay, it's that bad, is it? Yes. But yeah, I mean,
I think maybe we should be focusing on the uneven surface that we're walking on instead of...
walking on.
Shut up. Just put the camera away. So Scott, where are we?
This is Kerameikos, which is an ancient burial ground and one of the historical archaeological sites that we can visit on our ticket. We've obviously visited quite a few on this trip. This is the last one that we can do.
Old Rocks Part 5.
Old Rocks Part 5. It may even be more than Part 5 at this point. I've lost count of the number of old rocks I've seen. But we've journeyed a little bit outside the centre of the city, getting lost a little bit thanks to Google Maps. It's another scorchingly hot day. Mm-hmm. The walk that we just did didn't help, but
Nope.
A little bottle of nice refreshing cold water helps.
Yeah. I do wonder how much we've actually spent on water on this trip.
Yeah,
A significant amount,
quite a
I
lot,
think.
quite a lot on little bottles of water because it's the only thing you're allowed to take in into these sites. You're only allowed to drink water as you're going around.
The peaceful cemetery of Kerameikos extended to the edge of, and beyond, the walls of ancient Athens. Tombs line the streets, including the Sacred Way, an ancient road from Athens to the coastal suburb of Eleusis. Most of the larger and best preserved tombs date from the 4th or 5th century BC. Kerameikos is also the origin of the word ceramic, as many of the city's potters and ceramic workers lived here. Although Kerameikos was interesting, if you couldn't tell from Scott's enthusiastic piece to camera, by this point in the trip we were both footsore and starting to tire from looking at old rocks. Once we'd finished up here, we headed back to the city centre, finding refuge and shade at a rooftop bar overlooking the Acropolis.
Even though we were pretty much historyed out by this point, we still had several hours to kill before our flight to Kos. So we decided to visit one last museum, the National Archaeological Museum. And, ironically, it was actually the best museum we visited in Athens.
Honestly, we could probably do without another museum. We've looked at a lot of old things so far, but this one is supposed to be pretty good. So, yeah, thank you for trying to avoid my shot. That was appreciated, but all in vain. But I can understand why you want to take a picture of this lovely building, because it is pretty spectacular. So, yeah, we thought we'd come here and kill a few hours in some air-conditioned galleries.
Starting with Bronze Age artefacts, it charts the rise of the Mycenaeans and their gold-loving king Agamemnon, through the height of the Greeks during the classical period. Then, the occupation, assimilation and emulation by the Romans, all the way through to the Byzantines. I particularly liked how they'd reconstructed entire frescoes from just a few fragments of the originals, using traditional painting techniques to fill in the blanks.
Hello.
Hello. Gabby has the camera now and I don't know what to do. I'm a bit confused by this.
Do you kind of feel like you've lost a limb?
A little bit, yeah.
Yes, I have been attempting to fill this beautiful courtyard.
Aha, I see.
Yeah.
This is because Gabby would like to film the next holiday video.
Gabby is considering filming the next holiday video.
Well, maybe next time I'll give you a lens that's not all manual, because that does make it more difficult.
Yeah.
But, well,
See?
we'll have a look back and I'll judge. I'll be the judge.
Okay. Smile. We were saying goodbye to Athens, but not to Greece. Now we begin the second part of our trip, a 9-day all-inclusive stay at a 5-star hotel in Kos. Even though this involved taking the shortest flight either of us had ever been on, it was still scary.
This leg of the trip was all about relaxing. Our supposedly 5-star hotel in Kos was good, but didn't quite live up to its rating. Here, all-inclusive meant most cocktails were only free between 6 and 9, and the sunbeds on the beach weren't included at all. Food choices were often limited, and once or twice they were just not very good. But the staff were always friendly, and it had lots of pools to choose from, as well as a spa. And the grounds were lush and well maintained. It's also the only hotel I've ever stayed at with its own mini-golf course and on-site zoo, which I'm still not entirely sure how I feel about. The nearest town was Mastihari, a small fishing village a short taxi ride away.
So where are we?
We're at a bar called Horizon in our local town of Mastihari. This is a beach bar, basically. And yeah, although we're on like high stools, we're actually sat on the beach. Yeah, it's been another lovely day of relaxing. We had a massage today, that was fun. And now we're waiting for some, we hope will be very tasty but strong cocktails to arrive. So Gabby, where are we?
We are in Kostown by the marina, and we are about to get on that boat.
Okay.
And we are going on the 3-island cruise, which, I'm not going to lie, I am expecting to be a little bit of a party boat, but hey-ho. These boat tours are notorious for cheap booze, loud Europop, and cheerful swimming stops. But as more and more families and older people boarded, we assumed this raucous reputation was a myth. And it was, for about 30 seconds. Like most things in Greece, the boat trip was done with a wink and a cheeky grin. Our boat was part of a fleet of other booze cruises, zipping our way over to the first stop, the quaint island of Pserimos. Here we were given an hour to explore the village, go for a swim, or simply lounge on the beach.
We've got these little baggies to keep our phones dry while we go underwater. But yeah, it's a beautiful day in a lovely quaint place. The water is pretty cold, you've just got to kind of get in and do it. But yeah, it's good fun.
Our second stop of the day, Kalymnos, reminded us of the island of Symi, which we visited 5 years ago on our holiday to Rhodes. Like Symi, Kalymnos became wealthy through its cultivation of natural sponges from the seabed, but since we'd already been to a sponge factory on Symi, we chose to spend our time admiring the quiet streets and painted houses of the town instead. After a surprisingly good lunch of chicken souvlaki, we continued on to our swimming stop, anchoring just off the tiny nature reserve island of Plati. The bravest of us got to leap from the ship into the sea.
No, I can't do that. That is scary.
The less brave got to use the giant water slide and sound like a little rocket.
Oh God.
Only on our journey back to Kos town did we indulge in the strong cocktails and a bit of dancing, and we weren't the only ones.
What's this, Gabby?
It is our gyros that we have got because we're in Kos town after our booze cruise and we are absolutely hammered.
and we can't find a taxi home, so to waste a bit of time we've decided to have a meal.
Although we'd embarked on our boat tour from Kos town, we didn't really get a chance to look around the town itself. The forecast the next day was cloudy, so we decided to head back into town to explore it some more. As it turned out, the weather was, once again, oppressively hot. We'd also picked the one day of the week when all the historic attractions were closed, but honestly, we'd seen enough old rocks in Athens. We did, however, pay a visit to the tree of Hippocrates, underneath which father of modern medicine Hippocrates allegedly taught his students. Well, not under this exact tree. This one's a mere 500 years old, but is apparently a descendant of the original tree that stood here 2,400 years ago.
Without a doubt, the best evening at our hotel was Greek night, where we were served up traditional gyros and entertained by local musicians and dancers. As you can imagine, things quickly got out of hand.
Ήμουν εγώ στην Κράξιο, οι δασκάλοι με είχανε. Μπράβο.
Well, I got our hand quickly.
For our final night, we took a taxi inland to the picturesque hillside village of Zea. After such a fantastic holiday, what better way to see it off than with a beautiful sunset and a delicious meal?
So I've gone for veal in a tomato sauce with mashed eggplant, and Gabby has gone for pork with
greens and a lemon egg sauce.
lemon egg sauce. Okay.
Don't like it.
As if.
It's rude. Yeah.
Yeah, very tender, very flavoursome, really strong tomato taste to it as well, which is nice. Oh, we've been joined by a visitor.
We have been joined by a friend who has smelt food.
More gelato, eh, Gabby?
Frozen yogurt, actually. I'll have you know.
And what flavour have you gone for?
It's yogurt and orange, so it's got candied orange in it. You see?
Ooh,
Oh, indeed.
lovely.
Lovely.
Greece is such a fascinating country to explore. The Greeks are rightly proud of their history, and we certainly saw a lot of it on this trip, but that doesn't make them insular or dismissive of other cultures. On the contrary, modern Greece is open, laid back, and doesn't take itself too seriously. The food is fantastic, the views are spectacular, and the people are welcoming. What more could you want from a holiday destination? But what about you? Have I convinced you to come to Greece? What's your favourite place to visit in Athens? And which Greek island should we visit next? Let me know in the comments, and make sure you subscribe so you don't miss my next adventure. Thanks for watching.